Travis Decker suffocated and executed all three of his daughters and is now on the run from authorities. The following footage that I'm about to show you helps not only me, but hopefully the viewers can get a different perspective of what's actually happening here. Now, I'll add some side commentary throughout the stream, but it's important that you take this with a grain of salt because all of it is still out there for interpretation. So let's jump into it.
You need people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers.
Learned since the last video I did. Once he started living in his truck, his ex did go back to court to change the parenting plan. That was approved in October. That resulted in the removal of any overnight visits, and it also reduced the number of hours of visitation during the day. We've also heard, now I don't know if he was diagnosed with this or if the ex is just claiming he has it, but that he has borderline personality disorder, and she claims that was a big part of why their marriage ended. I want to emphasize before I get to this later, borderline personality disorder, actually every condition in the DSM, is essentially a spectrum type of disorder, means there are varying levels of severity. If he does have it, and if it did lead directly to the divorce, I'm going to assume, for the sake of speculation here and profiling, that he's on the more severe end of it. Why that's important is the more severe you get, the less likely it is that you can see how your behavior is causing responses you get from the environment. And instead, you basically blame everyone else for the things you do or the things that happen to you. And he could be in that category. We'll hit that again in a minute. Just in the last couple hours, authorities, and what night is this? Thursday night is when I'm doing this. Police have mentioned that they have issued multiple warrants in this case, including his digital information, digital devices, and they have closed off a big chunk of that region up in the forest up there to do the search. And they are advising people who have cabins up in that area, and there's going to be a lot, to make sure your cabins, outbuildings, etc. are locked. And they also mentioned to make sure your blinds are open in the cabin if you're not occupying it. That sounds a little weird, but the reason they're doing that is so they can assume if the blinds are open, there's probably no one in there. But if they're closed, someone might be hiding in there. Of course, that assumes that everyone gets that message and goes up there. So who knows if they found something that makes them think he might still be around up there. I'm going to run through a couple scenarios here of the possibilities if he's still alive. Now, I want to establish first, I'm still heavily on the side that he is deceased up there somewhere, and it'll just take a while, maybe a long while, to find him. Why would he hike up somewhere to take himself out and not just do it right there where he took out his daughters? Because he wants to hide his body up there somewhere. He wants to find a place where he can crawl into deep brush, something else that makes it hard or unlikely that he would be found very quickly. What would be the importance of that? Punishing his ex. Because as a more severe end of the borderline spectrum, he would see her as the reason that he's living in his truck and that he has restricted access to his children. Right? So that would be the big blame. So
I'm not going to pause this anymore after this point because I want to make sure that everybody is on the same level with what he's putting out. I actually want to do a show specifically on PTSD so that I get better understanding of it and that everyone who is watching gets a better understanding of, because I don't think people really care too much about mental illnesses or the effects that trauma has on people, what it does to relationships, what it does to yourself, what it does to your business, what it does to you mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. This is real. It's not just a catchphrase that people throw out there. And I do know that a lot of people just use these words and terms without knowing what they are, just as an excuse to avoid accountability or to be excused from certain attitudes and behaviors. But what he's essentially saying here is that, in my opinion, this to him is a revenge campaign. Doesn't seem as if he cares specifically about avoiding being arrested specifically. It's more or less about getting back at his ex-wife for kicking him out and leaving him homeless, or maybe it's a little deeper than that. That's what I'm getting from this. But I'm not going to stop it no more. I'm going to let it run all the way through and then give my final thoughts. But I do think that a show on PTSD is important.
Not only did he punish her by taking the lives of their children, he punished her by the method he did it, which was a very torturous method. And by hiding his body, he's not going to allow her closure. He's going to leave the possibility that he's still out there somewhere and may come after her. He doesn't want to give her that closure. So, of the dimensions in which he might still be alive, I don't consider either of these likely, but we don't have enough information at the moment to take anything off the table. The one that I consider least likely is the one that's really popular among a lot of people because of his military training, and that's that he's going all Rambo up there somewhere in the woods. The reason I consider that less likely and that his military training would really help him up there is because that kind of military training is based on the assumption that you are rational and can rationally apply that training. Nothing is indicating here that he's in a rational state, considering what he did. Of course, what helps fuel that, at least locally here, is that the area he disappeared into is very similar to the area in the Rambo First Blood movie. In fact, it's just a couple hours drive across the border into Canada to where they filmed that movie. So the terrain is very similar, and that's driving a lot of people in that direction. Could also be the reason he went off into the woods. He didn't have the nerve to take his own life, and he's hoping eventually someone else will do it and he gets to go out in a blaze of glory. More commonly, we call that suicide by cop, but that could be something there. The other possibility, if he's still alive, is his intent is to stalk his ex and possibly go after her. And if that's the route, then he probably did something around the area where he left the truck, where he left the bodies. There were early reports. There was
The only reason why I don't believe that he is out to get his ex-wife or whatever the case is, well, why didn't he just do it all at the same time? He had visitation. He went to pick them up, unless there was another party present to get the children, and he wasn't able to do it that way. I don't see why he would get them, pick out a specific location to bury them, knowing there's no way you're going to be able to spend back and return to the property, and then execute the wife or the ex-wife. I could be wrong, though. I think that he's bringing up a lot of good points. I'm not against nothing that he said, though. You know, let me see. It's just interesting to me what a person who is mentally unstable can possibly do when they feel as if life has no meaning anymore, or they've just gone through so much that what's left. Travis Decker unalived all three of his children, and from the evidence that was given, he mapped out everything that he was going to do. He specifically got it set up to where he was going to move to Canada, and based on his training, he knows how to live off the land. He's been in the service long enough to be able to take care of himself. So for him, I don't know if this is a revenge tour, if this is his way of saying farewell, if he wants to live or not. I can't imagine wanting to live after I just killed my children. We'll see what happens moving forward, though. Tragic. It's sad, man. It really is.
Merry Christmas, filthy animals. And a Happy New Year.